we eventually found somebody who knew the family and took us. And I said, I just want to go for 2 hours and meet this family. So we arrived on a Saturday afternoon about 3 o'clock, and we were met by the children and very much welcomed into this little mud hut, and tea was brought for us. And we were introduced to a man called Longino, who had actually been writing to me in his wife's name. His wife had left 2 years ago. So we spent a couple of hours with him, and he showed us a little roundhouse that he'd got where we would stay. And we decided to go back and stay with him for 10 days, which was very enjoyable. He employed a cook for us. And we had a really nice time learning about their culture. But also he introduced us to a lot of people in the local area, a group of cashew nut farmers. He introduced us to the nursing school, and to the primary school, and also to the monastery. I met a lady called Helen at the local swimming pool, and I was telling her that I was planning to go back and perhaps work with them a bit more. They're very keen to learn English, and she was very excited about it. She wanted to help, wanted to know what she could do to help.
I met Mary while swimming at Frankwise swimming pool, and we got to talking about knitting. And she was talking about how she raises money for a little community out in Tanzania called Makalapa. So while we were sort of swimming and talking, we eventually decided, well, actually, it might be quite a nice idea with some of the girls that I knitted with beforehand to form our own little group to raise money specifically for this community out in Makalapa.
And instead of hiring a venue to go and knit, it was agreed that we'd share our homes and take it in turns. Obviously, when they come to my house, the hostess is not as good as some of the other houses because they have to take me as they find me. But some of the cakes at some of the other venues are spot on.
I'm the newest member of the Makalapa knitting group. I've been coming about nearly 2 years now. They're a really friendly lot, really good lot, and it's such a laugh, such fun to come to the meetings. We do have a giggle. Lisa is a real card, and the others are great too.
I mainly go for the camaraderie of the other women at the end of a week, not because I'm going to knit a masterpiece. I also go for the cake, and I enjoy the company of the other women, and it's nice to have that companionship, especially as I'm the youngest. I thought I'd get that in there.
At a wedding, a friend's son's wedding, I was talking to Catherine, and so she invited me to come along to the knitting group and explain that they were raising money for a village and a place, Makalapa, in Tanzania.
So I met some of the group at a community knitting. Well, it wasn't mainly knitting, it was other crafts as well. And it was a very cold, drafty building and used to cost us £3 for a cold cup of tea and a very cold building to sit and knit in. So some of us got a bit fed up with that and the organisation, and we thought we could put the money to better use. And at the same time, Helen Carrott had met Mary and Sheila and talked about Makalapa and the village, and we decided all to join up.
Through conversations with Helen, she wanted to start the Makalapa Knitters because she's very interested in knitting and other handicrafts. And through those conversations, I think in the July we had our first meeting in one of the members' houses.
The first meeting that we had, we met at my house so that Mary could meet the girls that were also knitting with me at the Rainbow Centre. I think now we've got about 11 of us that meet on a regular basis, and we do this going around each other's houses. The first way that we raise money for the community is we all pay a small amount into a kitty each week. This here is our teapot, and in here we put our money that then goes to Makalapa. So this is what we collect our donations to.
Helen has been a big drive in this, and in about 3 months I think we raised £75.
The money that we pay each week is how we make the money. The first amount of money we made, we used to purchase a sewing machine.
So when we went back, we bought a girl called Salama a sewing machine. She was trained in dressmaking, and she now has a small business and supports her family with dressmaking business.
The other way we raise money is by having fundraising groups, which in fact Mary and Sheila do most of the organising for.
In terms of fundraising, it's actually a bit difficult for me because I work for a registered charity, so I'm always fundraising on their behalf. But I like the fundraising events that we do, and also using my work in a playgroup, I've got access to all those parents to ask for donations, and also the school that we're part of. So I've put out requests for old prescription glasses that people don't want anymore, and I quite often find those in my pigeonhole at the school, and I collect those for Mary to take out on her trips.
On my trip in 2009, I stayed for 11 weeks. I spent Christmas there as well, which was a very different experience to an English Christmas that I was used to.
Originally, when Mary went out there to stay, she stayed with Langino, and Langino was trying to set up a sort of cooperative to help the local farmers actually all get together, mainly with his groundnut scheme, which Mary had helped with in ploughing the land and things.
During that time, we helped a group of farmers which had formed a cooperative, and we spent some money on having some land ploughed for them, so that they could grow a crop of groundnuts. We spent some money on books for the nursing library, and also towards the end of our trip we had a tap put in at the primary school, mainly because we were so shocked how far children would carry water into school, maybe 4 or 5 miles. And it tended to, they seemed to think that it would help with children being absent from school if they had water available. So we had a tap put in. We had the support of the Benedictine monks to put this tap in.
This was my first trip out to Tanzania in February 2012, although it was Mary's third trip.
We flew on New Year's Eve, and we did think there'd be some kind of New Year celebration in the air, but there was nothing. We were only offered a glass of water from BA.
And we stayed in Dar es Salaam for about 3 days. We'd done some research before we went, and we found a company that sold the medical equipment that we were wishing to buy. We had the money sent over via Western Union, as it's the only way to get money into the country. We managed to buy the medical equipment. And then the monks very kindly started to take the equipment down to Nanda, because it's a very long journey, so that the equipment was almost there when we arrived down in Nanda 3 weeks later.
Blood pressure machines, thermometers, an examination lamp, an incubator. So we went and bought the equipment that they wanted.
They also, another simple thing is that is how you take temperatures. In England nowadays, you don't put a thermometer in someone's mouth. You use a remote method of measuring temperature, which reduces infection. So we took out a lot of thermometers, which were welcomed as well. So simple things like that making quite an enormous difference.
Other projects I've sort of taken part in directly from Makalapa have been making the baby blankets for the premature baby unit. They've got very little equipment and not much disposable either, I suspect. So yeah, that was quite fun. We all knitted them to a similar pattern. It's amazing the variation everybody's knitting, so they all turn out quite differently.
We visited the premature baby unit, which was a little bit of a shock because it was just a little tiny box room with a couple of plastic boxes in it. And we met a mum there who'd had twins 2 days before, and they were absolutely tiny. There were no blankets or anything in the cots for the babies, so one of the things that we did when we came back was we asked the knitters whether they would like to make some blankets for the premature babies, which they've done. And we've got a couple here that have been made by the knitters, and one that I've made. Just little tiny blankets to go out and cover the babies up. We've already sent about a dozen out, and we've got about another dozen that we've made that hopefully we'll be able to take out in 2014.
Another project also to do the similar thing with goats, to breed the goats and sell the goat's milk. So there were basically very small projects actually in Makalapa, in this sort of, in the bush, living in the houses around there.
We'd done really well with the fundraising at this time. We set a target of £5,000, but we'd actually managed to raise 4,500. The Makalapa knitters raised 2,500 of that, which it was planned to spend on the maternity unit. And then the other £2,000, which some friends of mine spearheaded the fundraising for that, the plan was to build some toilets at the school because the toilets were pretty dire.
And one of the things Mary spotted was actually that there was a water supply not far away. And so she actually paid for this water main to be moved along into the school so that they now have a tap in the school. So we went back really to check that the tap was working well, but also the knitters had all gathered the money so that we could build some toilets for the school. So we set about actually trying to work out how these toilets should go up, which was a great adventure. But again, one of our number, Mary, and supervised actually looking at how they dug the hole, because actually there's no plumbing for the sewage. It's just a big drop. It's a very big hole that all the children excrete into. And there's no bricks. They actually all have to be made. So basically the people were digging over the sand, mixing it with cement and casting the bricks, leaving them out to dry so that they could build the toilet block. And also we were hoping to extend the water supply so that people could actually wash their hands when they came out of the toilet.
One of the things I do feel quite passionately about, and I would like to support more, is a project called the Nzuma Project.
There was a lady there who was called Ruth, who was in English but was working for VSO, and she was actually there to drive up the quality of the nursing. Her whole point was to actually go and help manage the nursing quality things.
When I was out there in 2008, 2009, I'd spent quite a lot of time with a Swedish VSO worker who had set up a community nursing project.
And one of the interesting things that we provided for her was clocks.
And they support people that have health needs where they will be on medication for the rest of their lives. We've done a small amount of work with them, but I would like to do some more. One of the things we've done was they've employed a social worker because as these people die, they're left with orphan children. And they've employed a social worker to support these children through extended families. And we had a cheese and wine evening, and we managed to raise £75 to buy her a bike, because before then she was walking from place to place.
If you're a nurse who doesn't have a watch and you're supposed to record a pulse, it's not actually that easy. And if you've got a clock on a wall, you can look up and count the pulse and get a real measurement, as opposed to the ones that were being made up, because they actually just fitted on the chart a lot better.
When I went back to Tanzania in 2012, Longino had passed away. He passed away in the November, I think, of 2011. And his sons were now living at his house and farming there, and he's buried on the land. And I wanted to have a memorial to him because, you know, we'd missed the time when he was so poorly and had died. So his sons and I arranged a party, and I think we paid about £14 each, Sheila, Rosa, Catherine and I, and we organised the Makonda Platter dancers, and also we arranged food for them all, and I think there was about 200 people came in the end, and we've managed to feed 200 people and put on some entertainment, all for £14 each, which I thought was pretty amazing. And it was a lovely tribute to Longino to have all his friends together and to celebrate his life.
They'd set up a party, a Makalapa party, which was really there to celebrate Longino and his life, because he died about 9 months before and was buried actually just behind his house in his own little plot. So when we arrived, the whole village got together in order to sort of create the food. Again, we had to sort of walk for miles around carrying bags of millet and various other things back to the hut, shelled the peas and the rice to try and pick the grit out of it, and the ladies started cooking sort of about 7 o'clock in the morning, and so it was ready for when everybody turned up, and hundreds of people turned up from the villages. In fact, I think a lot of the kids came out of school at lunchtime and came and joined. They imported a dance troupe from up on the plateau, who came down and danced endlessly, while the ladies and I made idiots of ourselves, prancing around, trying to join in this dancing. But what was really very touching was just how welcome everybody made us. And then the whole proceedings moved on to actually his grave, and just stood round his grave and celebrated his life, and then came back to finish off the beer.
I will always be grateful to Longino and to all the people that he's introduced me to in Tanzania. He was a great man, and he had great faith, and he always wanted to help people and help his local villagers, and I feel that I want to continue in his memory doing these things to help people, and just the smallest amount helps somebody in Tanzania. I think they say the average Tanzanian person lives on 20p a day, which is a very small amount of money. So I'm sure we will continue to fundraise and hopefully make a difference.